Ladies and gentlemen of the crypto space, we're live on a Wednesday, July 17th at 12:16 p.m. We're going to talk some rationality today because that's what we do best, and we're going to put things into a perspective that are quite different. We talk about topics that we've talked about for a long time at this point, but we rehash them, we frame them a little bit differently so they're maybe understandable from a different perspective. And it's important to go over things over and over again until they make sense, but maybe make sense even a little bit differently, make sense a little bit better. So emerging markets, traditional terminology, usually applied from an American perspective to the rest of the world, the emerging markets, whereas we are the emerged market. Quite narcissistic, or I don't know. That it's probably a word that is applicable there. Ego. But that is certainly the case for the crypto markets as compared to even the rest of the world. So this is an emerging market. It is not a fully adopted market. People talk and use that word often, adoption. This is a nascent market. This is a growing market from the bottom. Therefore, it is emerging from less to something that is more. This is certainly not a perspective that the general public has, and there's a great sense of disbelief uh, prevailing across the general public because they still look to price action and memes and appreciation for what is occurring in these crypto markets. But these crypto markets, if you frame it in terms of an emerging market, you must identify the businesses. We're very clear in how we discuss the businesses. Businesses are FX, foreign exchange. Guys, even general public clearly understands that. Uniswap, Curve, aggregators, CowSwap, 1inch, Paraswap, Ramses, Velodrome, Aerodrome, foreign exchange. That's what I mean by foreign exchange. Those are foreign exchange venues. That's banking infrastructure in meat space terms. They're banks. A little limited if you're just focusing on foreign exchange, but foreign exchange is processing multi-trillions of dollars a day. And that's how early we are. So you're still early by all reasonable inspection. And then the second most important business in these crypto markets is credit. The capacity to turn, oh, how could I say this in a sentence for the general public to understand? Credit. And how do I tell the dollar story in a couple of sentences? What is a dollar? Credit is just as you think it is. Credit card, you're spending money that you don't have, which is the creation of money. So that's the second most significant business in these crypto markets. And then derivatives. Derivatives, LSDs, staked Ethereum, liquid staked Ethereum, STETH, RETH, Aladdin DAO Suite, Curve, CVX, CRV, all liquid stake products, derivative products, tokenized leverage products. It's a token that represents something. It's a derivative of something. And these are the three products that the crypto space offers. And interestingly enough, these are the three products that literally make the financial world go round. So, putting some puzzle pieces together, if this is an emerging market of fintech business, where the businesses offer products and services that make the world go round, um, then the general public is missing the crypto space for what it really is. Thus, the late night tweet post last night called disbelief, because they don't see it for what it is. They're still disenchanted by utility tokens. That's like 2021 and 2022, just trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And like, oh, yeah, what utility does it have? What's the circulating supply? What's the fully diluted value in the market cap? And ha ha ha, trying to be astute about things that have a much bigger picture. I mean, like, is it a fixed supply? And what's the inflation? How does it compare to Bitcoin, which is the hardest money in the world? And there's so much more story. There's so much more richness. There's so much more nuance to what's going on. And you can't. There's so many good things in traditional finance that you cannot just dismiss. Hundreds of years of financial technology and processes and systems merely because the United States deficit spends, and we have this disgusting national debt. And Bitcoin fixes that. Yes, we understand that Bitcoin fixes a lot of things, but as an engineer and as anyone that understands that the world is not simple and good solutions are not simple, they're robust, there is much more that goes into a robust financial system than just money. Oh shit. Money doesn't fix a financial system. Money is a component of a financial system. It's a key component, and it's just a part of it, though. So that's where a lot of the technology we talk about comes in. And it just so happens that uh, you need good money to build a strong foundation, but you sure as hell need foreign exchange because there is no way in hell that the whole world is going to agree on units of account, on exchange rates. Everyone's going to want their own shit. They're going to want Bitcoin India, Bitcoin China, and they're all. It's not that they're fighting it and that the Bitcoin standard is inevitable. Sure, maybe that's a reasonable statement. The Bitcoin standard is inevitable, but that's kind of like, oh, the whole world's going to come together in harmony and going to drop their powers and authority and just they're going to be forced to accept this global standard. No, they're going to fight it to all hell. They're going to want to do their own thing. So foreign exchange is critical. Changing one denomination to another. It just is what it is. And then credit is literally oldest business in the world other than prostitution. So that's critical for growth. It's how you start businesses, how an entrepreneur does anything whatsoever. So these are base fintech products. The basis for any sort of reasonable financial system. Except better. So we don't have to discuss better right now, but we're just identifying that these are very significant businesses. And it's not what the general public sees and why they're in disbelief and they're just missing the most important thing that's going on. Disbelief is prevalent. It's unfortunate. I mean, look at these markets, $64,350. Holy shit. That's crazy. It was yesterday when I snagged my first Bitcoin at 250. Holy crap. What a strange world this is. Um, Anywho, so business operations continue from my perspective. We've been discussing a lot of that lately. So my 2 cents is these are the assets to have exposure to and make sure that they produce revenue. Make sure you're accumulating collateral. Make sure you have chicken and the egg sorted out before this market cycle starts, which is it still hasn't started yet. But look, all the stars are aligned at this point between Trump and his VP pick, and China just going through a deflationary implosion. All the stars, all the macro stars have literally aligned. Why? Let's talk about that. That's interesting. The whole world, from a financial perspective, people are afraid. They're in disbelief. The whole world is always on the precipice of failing, of financially failing. So it's like, what if we go into a recession? What if commercial real estate explodes? What if deflation in China spreads to the rest of the world because they devalue? We literally got Vance talking about devaluing the US dollar because we've hollowed out our entire manufacturing base because of a strong dollar. So, what if the general public understands one thing: continuity and normalcy? It's very hard having this conversation, and from my side and from your side, because from your side, no matter what level you're at in understanding the way the system works, it is very hard to put yourself in the shoes of a person that has zero understanding of the way the system works. And the closest I can get is trying to remember when my earliest recollection was when I did lifeguarding when I was probably like 14, 15 years old, back in Queens, New York. And I remember, like, adolescence and that whole naive bliss, the adolescent obliviousness to the world. And you get your first paycheck, and that's it. Oh, the paycheck, the 1040, the W-2. And that's the whole world to the majority. W-2, 1040, the whole world, the majority, the United States speaking, and hopefully the thought carries through to many places around the world. Hopefully it's a relevant thought I'm trying to express. Did you know the majority goes to work and pretty much could click one button to file their taxes because the boss sends the W-2 to the IRS, and then when you go to TurboTax, it's basically a free federal return because they pull up your W-2 and they file the 1040, and it's like one page. They built the system. They built the system for the majority, and that's what keeps the normalcy. That's what keeps the calm. What keeps the social civility. That's simplicity. So it turns out everyone's paying a premium for that simplicity, and they pay it in the form of income tax and other taxes, and they don't realize it. So the whole normalcy that we're all accustomed to is based on the majority never peering behind the curtain. People say that on social media. You've seen it. If the whole world knew the way the system worked, there'd be protests everywhere. I understand that, and and I do something about it though. And I could scream at the top of a podium, and I do it in a way with our little chat we have here, 113 people on the stream and on X, about the business structure and the statutes that I read, IRS rules that I read, Florida statutes that I read. Nobody fucking listens. When I say nobody, I don't mean you. What I mean is a generalization. 113 people listening, and my follower count on X, in the grand scheme of things, is zero. It's microscopic, infinitesimal, a subset of a subset, a 0.1% of a 0.1% of a 0.1%. The majority, blue pill. They don't know any of it, even if you tell them. And what is it? They won't even believe it if you tell them. Man, the Matrix narratives are just ever relevant. They won't want to wake up, even if they're told they could wake up. They don't want to see the real world, even if someone's willing to tell them what the real world is. They just want the comfort, the comforting bliss of one-click 1040 filing. It's so easy, it's so simple, and hard is a burden. I'm not. I could be very clear when I say that what I've done over the last 2 years with business, oh, sure as hell was a burden. That is complicated shit. The documents that I've written, the legal documents that I've written, that's some fucking crazy shit. And this is exactly, I remember maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, thinking from that mindset of who I was. And I remember always hearing stories about how the wealthy can use the rules of the system to do different things. But now, at my age and my understanding of the system, I'm like, all right, I'm going to fucking read the rules and I'm going to do what the rules say to do. I'm going to play by the rules. If the rules change, I change by the rules. I follow the rules. Follow the rules of the system and fucked up system. You realize it's a system of control, a system of maintaining normalcy, of maintaining social civility. And that's why I've said many a times, at some point, they finance social civility. So, I guess what's a good takeaway? If the system is always on the verge of fucking failing, and it's a debt-based system, and the system needs to expand, otherwise it fails, and the general public have no comprehension of this, it is of the utmost significance, and it is a requirement of the government to make the system continue to work. And that's, somewhat of what we talked about over the last years and how it broke in '08 and what we understand from much more experienced and astute macroeconomists, how it broke and what have they done to resolve it. And that brings us to where we are, like post 2020. And all the resiliencies and fallbacks and programs and that they've implemented to prevent it from falling apart. And you still got people in the crypto space screaming, when the system fails and when the Bitcoin standard gets enacted, we're going to be the only people left with money. Oh, dear Lord. The general public wouldn't know what to do. It'd be absolute chaos. So the system won't fail. It's got to be your base case. Base case is they patch over it. They do whatever that you and I both cannot understand needs to be done in order to maintain that normalcy. Because without that, you have chaos. And that is there's unspoken mandates all over the place. That's an unspoken mandate of every federal agency, be it the Treasury or the Fed. They always say, like, the Fed's mandates are for full employment and price stability. Yeah, it's also that Bob doesn't kill Randy, his neighbor, because he hasn't eaten in 2 weeks. And he lost his job 6 months ago. And he just robbed the pharmacy because he's depressed. Of course, that's an unspoken mandate of basically the Fed, the Treasury, Congress, the President. Make sure there's social civility. So that's got to be the base case. So all of this continues. The game goes on. As Lynn is saying most recently, Lynn Alden, she's saying nothing stops this train. Nothing stops this damn train. It's got to keep going. So it's not about fear that you either it's not about control of fear or having fear that you're in or not in these crypto markets. These are the best goddamn investments there are. I mean, post 2020, in hindsight, the business that I've created, the business rules, the documents I've created, could not exist prior to 2020. So these businesses in these crypto markets have allowed me to create a legally structured business that's unprecedented, that allows me to craft business rules that were not, that had no, they have strength now because of smart contract features, attributes, realities that didn't exist prior to 2020. I could not make the arguments that I make prior to 2020. And that's pretty crazy. I could literally prove that I cannot sell something. That's crazy. So you got folks going through bear market paralysis of 2022 and 2023 saying only the dumb people lock up stuff. Depreciation is bad. It's short-sighted. There's so much more to it. This power that comes along with locking up an asset. And it's a power that, unless you understand it from a legal perspective, you can't appreciate it. It's easy to be, um, uh, what's the word? It's easy to be critical of it. It's easy to dismiss it. It's easy to scorn it, but that's just because it's not understood. The, the, the power that a locked asset offers is absolutely mind blowing. Bear in mind that equation does change if they fuck around and find out with tax rates. For instance, the people have been saying like they drop it to 15%, but that still doesn't affect income. Income is still going to be the 30% federal. Um, so that doesn't really resolve the entire equation. But 15% cap gains really does change a lot. But I think they were talking about corporate tax. So that actually also is meaningful because why do it? Why do all the insanity and all the documentation required of a trust if you could just go on LegalZoom.com and spin up a corporation and pay 15%? Because actually, it still makes sense because now you're paying 50% corporate and you're still going to pay income tax when your corporation pays you. So, all right, trust for the win still makes sense. Even if they drop corporate tax rates and even if they drop capital gains tax rates, it still makes sense. Extraordinary arguments can be made. Anyway, let's go through the commentary. If you're on X or if you're on YouTube, throw comments. Let's talk. What's on your mind? How can I help you? Sky's the limit at this point. Crypto markets, emerging markets, FX, credit, derivatives, business. How do you wrap it all into a business? How do you get off the personal ownership bandwagon, which is default? Do not do default. We could do better than default. Just takes, in my experience and my life, sometimes it just takes someone to tell you that you can do better, to actually do better. Do so much better than default. Why? Because default is blue pill. Default is just playing by the rules of the game that they give you. Meanwhile, they have a bunch of other rules of the game that they don't give you. Use those rules too. Holy and holy, good afternoon, Cap for us Florida folks. Florida in the house. Not so sunny out today down in South Florida, but it's okay. Maybe there'll be some afternoon sun and I get to sit outside and relax a little bit. Boy, do I wish fresh produce markets like this were more common in our country. Yeah. Um, I mean, there's always something down here. Uh, um, Still got to go through the tiers of supply chain, and there's grades of produce. For instance, Publix doesn't get the same produce as Whole Foods or Fresh Market. Um, you grab strawberries at Walmart and they'll last like 2 days, a day. And you get strawberries at Whole Foods or Fresh Market, and boom, that shit lasts like 4 days, a week. It's a whole different level of quality of produce at Whole Foods and Fresh Market down here. Anywho, arrows in the house. Good afternoon. Say good afternoon. Teddy, is the VIX the move, but for the S&P opposed to bonds? Yes, VIX is stock market volatility, and move is for the most liquid and deep asset in the world, the United States Treasury market. Yes, indeedy. Um, I don't. I look at the VIX, but does it really matter? 14.77. Okay, it kind of does. It all matters. Every piece of data matters. Well, That's an 11% spike in the VIX. Would you look at that? But look, it's right on trend. So for the last 2 years, over 2 years, 2.5 years, SVIX has been used to crush the VIX. So all you have to do is, if you're an actor, a global actor, is buy the SVIX, and that'll crush the VIX. So there's mechanisms in the market to suppress the VIX. So let's see what happens. That's a hell of a trend line right there. 2 years, you see a breakout and a close. This is a monthly chart. You'd have to see a close. So there hasn't been a close. This was an attempt here in September of 22. I have to think about what's going on back then. But look at these suppressions. Crush, crush, crush. Let's see what it does. I mean, macro stars are aligning. The world looks like it's falling apart. Bond market, I don't understand it like Jeff Snyder, but it looks like the whole world is ready to cut. I mean, cut hard, because the whole world looks like it's freaking falling apart, and growth looks like it's completely rolling over, and unemployment, even in the U.S., is finally looking like it's perking up. So, and political optics is like just screaming to cut. Um, Whatever it is, we're close to everything that everyone talks about in these crypto markets when shit starts to get weird and shit starts to get parabolic soon. The feeling I have right about now is like Q3, Q4 2020, and it just so happens that's exactly where we are. So everything did weird stuff in early part of 2020. They call it the DeFi summer. That's kind of like what we just had in 2024, the meme coins. And then in the second half of 2020, uh, utility stuff started to become interesting. Like, it's more than just price. It's more than just a token in popularity in social media. What are these things doing? What is this AMM exchange? What is this? What is this staking? And they're gonna give me an APR, and everyone's like going crazy. I myself, I might add, it's going crazy at the second half of 2020. And everything paused in like December, good part of December, maybe half of November to December 2020, if I recall correctly. And then, boom, 2021, January, like 1st, boom, everything went parabolic. In the utility space, the fintech space of this emerging market. Shit got weird in 2021, but that's literally the macro stars right now. Everything looks like it's falling apart. They're going to cut. Everyone's going to cut. Global cutting. China's going to have to do whatever the hell they're going to do, because their real estate market is dollar denominated and it's collapsing. And she just had like a stroke. Holy crap! And what's going on in the U.S. with our uh, uh, septuagenarian president and uh, contender, septuagenarian being 70-year-olds, are falling apart political stuff. I never talk about politics, but holy fuck, this is like macro stars of crypto craziness between what Trump talks about and Vance talks about, and holy fuck. And when's the Ethereum ETF going live? Like in 5 minutes? I think it's next week. Oh my God. And there we think about a world post Gensler. Trump's president, you got no Gensler. And you got an SEC that's literally like, oh, here's a rule, here's a rule, here's a rule. Okay, this is how you're going to do it. Here's the playing field. All right. Not as fucking come in and register bullshit. It's like, all right, we're making moves. We're turning crypto into the fintech that, I mean, literally the U.S. is in the business of dollars exporting. And Vance wants to weaken the dollar. Oh my God. Oh my God. He got, You guys have no idea unless you experience the insanity of 20 and 21 and 16 and 17 of what it's like when shit gets weird. It gets so weird. It gets so weird, it's not even like GameStop weird. I don't even have words for it. Yeah, I just have to have had the experience. Vance and weakening the dollar. Oh my God. If they weaken the dollar. If China weakens, dollar goes to infinity and beyond, and who knows what happens with Japan. And FX is a relative game, so that means if they blow up or weaken, we literally have to figure out how to structurally devalue the dollar, because if the dollar is too strong, the whole system fails. So a lot of folks, general public, don't understand about the dollar. The dollar doesn't end with the DXY going down. The dollar ends with the DXY going up. So when the dollar goes down, that's a kick of the can of sorts. Look at that. Look at the VIX popping. And the DXY down in 103.8. Where's move? 93. A little bit of an uptick from 86. Man, we are so damn close. We're so close. This is the butter zone. This is the weird zone. This is when things start to get weird. Let's go out to a 6-month chart. That's when things really start to get weird. Right here on the move, and DXY could actually remain relatively elevated because it's a relative game. But the fact, if it decreases, that's just additive. That's just like, it's getting weird. The DXY is down at 95. Holy shit. That is going to get really weird. It gets so weird. Like the macros, these are all forward-looking indicators. Because all of this sets the stage for investment and capital allocation and misallocation for that matter if there's excess currency. Yen down at 156. Man, these boys are talking. The global powers, the treasury departments, central banks, they're all talking. Because this chart is crazy. Anywho. Adam's in the house. Good afternoon. Crypto Jake, Killis, always a pleasure. Raul. The con, what are your thoughts on DPIN sector? DPIN changes everything. But DPIN's going up against Amazon, Azure. It's going up against the good old boy club of tech, cloud companies. Love DPIN. Love the tech. I don't have the capital to deploy, and I'm done for the cycle. I've done my investments. It's great investments still. There's nothing to say about there being great investments right now, where they're potentially still at a relatively significant discount. But at some point, when you get to the point where I am, and you define your business rules to be rigorous and rigid, and you follow them, you make a statement. I'm done. Now I get to sit back. And this is also very consistent with what I talked about in 2022. I said next cycle, as shit's going fucking parabolic, and Bitcoin's at 100 grand, and curves at $5, and then everything's just getting started. I'll just sit back with my feet up. It's nothing to do except click a claim button. That's what I said was my goal in 22. And it turns out after 2 years worth of work, I didn't expect to be this well prepared. That's kind of surreal. Hindsight. Hindsight's funny. I didn't think that. I had no idea what the hell. I had no idea what was going to come of this trust and what was possible, and legal documents and writing all this stuff that I do. I had no idea that he could write 28 pages of shit, and I had no idea AI was going to come online and chat GBT and shit. Oh my God. Don't even get me started about what's coming from AI. Oh my God. I would never have been able to do that document if it wasn't for the research capacity, the logical capacity, reasoning capacity of AI tools. They're not always correct, but they're rational. So you still have to inspect and understand what it is saying. So it's an additive utility. It helps you become the better yourself. And that's what it allowed me to be. Wow, ChatGPT is crazy. Not much else I think is useful right now. Obviously, I like the image software, but I think ChatGPT is in the lead even above in consideration of Claude. I couldn't do my legal work with Claude. It doesn't work the same way, but ChatGPT does literally everything I needed to do. Anywho, Test, what do you think about IWM outperforming this week? That's interesting. Very interesting. That basically means the general public who doesn't know anything about anything, it's not a derogatory thing, it's just a reality, piles in to the thing that's going up. And that was NVIDIA, Microsoft, Mag 7, and then it became literally the Mag 1, NVIDIA. So there's all this concentration of capital into one fucking thing. That chart is disgusting. Fine, it's not a bubble, but holy shit, that's a bubble. All that capital, once things turn around, and y'all know this for folks that have been in the crypto space, when Bitcoin turns around, it frickin' turns around. It demonetizes. It's the same thing in equity markets. It's just that you don't see it often. You saw it in '08, saw it in 2000, you saw it in '87, and you go earlier, like 1929, all that giant credit bubble they had in 1929. They call it the Great Depression. It's basically a credit bubble. It's always a credit bubble. Um, so once things start going in the other direction, general public starts selling hand over fist. What does that mean? That means for the last 2 years, equal weight, as well as Russell 2000 or the Wilshire 5000, the stock market, the actual stock market, not the S&P or Nasdaq. That's like not the stock market. That's an ETF. Everyone looks at the S&P and they're like, "Oh, this is the stock market." Um, but this is better representation of the market. RSP equal weight, and this is literally just like a myopic perspective on the stock markets. There's a lot of companies on the planet, and you want a healthy nation, a healthy market to have a lot of companies. So IWM, Russell 2000, outperforming means finally people are not jumping into the crowded trade and just buying the same old shit over and over again. And oh my God, finally, because equal weight, Russell 2000 is rational, whereas Nasdaq and S&P are it's a fucking irrational thing. It's just concentrate, concentrate, concentrate. That's bullshit. So that is exactly what I think test. I think finally we're going to have some diversified allocation of capital to companies that deserve investment. The curing of malinvestment at some point is inevitable. Hope that helps. Josh, can you explain what you mean by business? What is this business made of? So a business has very simple components. A business has an owner, it has employees, and it has products and services. That's a business. So if you're talking about crypto business, you're talking about three categories: foreign exchange, credit, and derivatives. So if I create a business, there's a common term called a subsidiary. So if a company buys businesses, they are subsidiaries of that business. So I, as a business, buy businesses that sell products and services. So my business owns foreign exchange, credit, and derivative businesses. That's it, period. So I own foreign exchange, credit, and derivative businesses that make a fair amount of revenue. And the revenue of the businesses I own are my business's revenue. So a lot of this is can be called modeling, but modeling is just a way to describe what is real. So everything that I just described is actually the case. It's somewhat of a model, but it's actually real. I have a business that owns businesses that produce revenue, therefore my businesses receive revenue from the businesses that I own. And that is a simple way to state what is this business made of. Now you want numbers. So what is revenue? If you have a business that owns a business and that business generates $1,000 a week, my business is making $1,000 a week. So how much does that subsidiary cost? That's stuff like X, Y, Z. How much does it cost? How much is it paying? And how likely is it to continue to pay into the future? So that's an investment guideline. And then you have things like accounting. How do you document these types of revenues, which are called receipts? And then accounting is a whole nother conversation. And there's basically three categories for accounting. I'll state them briefly, not to overwhelm folks. You have personal accounting, where you're just doing this shit blue-pilled and you're filing a 1040 or just whatever standard tax returns and you're paying fat income taxes. Then you have corporate accounting. So if you go to LegalZoom and open a corporation, then you have to follow all those rules. And then the third category is the oldest category in common law, which is called a private contract. So you yourself could write down on a piece of paper, I just rules, and you notarize those rules, and that is called a private contract. And those rules have legal significance. So the best expression or explanation of what that means is software. Let me explain. If I write software and then I compile it, I have an application which then could execute on a processor. Think of an Android app. Someone wrote the code, someone writes the Android code, which is what I do for a living. I compile it by pressing the run button or building a bundle or an APK. And then someone installs it on their phone and they press the app icon and the processor runs it. Now, the world runs that same process, and that's called law. So that starts with a document. It just so happens that literally this is a document. Compilation is called notarization. And the judge is a processor who processes your compiled code. Hope that helps, because that is real. That is actually the way the world works. So accounting and business structure, as much as they are overwhelming concepts, I was not thinking about business structure in 2021 or 2020 or when I was younger. And I often say, I have no idea how I got here. How did I get here? I got no idea how the hell I do what I do. I don't know, man. I don't know. But at this point, I could talk quite knowledgeably about private contracts and trust structures, especially in the state of Florida. So that's another story about federalism and like the history of the United States and how law is iterated, and law iterates by common law, which is basically court cases and precedents. And those precedents make their way into statute. And you could read the statute, which is the rules. Read federal statute and state statute, and it tells you the rules. And by all means, understand the rules, because when you understand the rules, follow the rules, and you can do what the rule says you can do. So that's why it gets weird when you build a business of private contracts, because then it's just not blue pilling it through a 1040. Bunch of rules for corporate accounting, corporate reporting, and compliance documentation. But for private contracts, you get to define the rules, which is kind of powerful. But bear in mind, when you define the rules, you gotta define all the rules. So this is just part of it because you need a lot more than just this document. This document is high level, my business rules, but it's based on a lot of work that lawyers have done over the centuries, literally centuries at this point. And that's like very boilerplate base level, like 50 notarizations of stating who does this, trustee, trust protector, beneficiaries, grantor, the overall structure, the very base level stuff. So I've read that document a lot, and it's boring as fuck, but it sets out the base rules. And then what I did with my document is take it to a higher level. So that base document's like 30 pages, and then my document's going on 28 pages. So that's 60 pages worth of rules to create a private contract that follows the rules set forth by state of Florida and federal government for how a person can run a private contracted business, which is equivalent to a corporation, or it's an entity that's akin to a corporation in that a corporation is an entity, which is also akin to how an individual is an individual. So there's three categories of how to fit into the accounting system of this country: individual, corporation, private contract. Hope that helps. Critical Mass tried to sell my kid's portfolio for RAM. We had a meeting. They said no, RAM is up 30%. Well, it was their decision. So let's get some hopium. I need some hopium. Let's go over to volumes. All right, fine. Listen, I get a little disheartened or disenchanted from a price action chart, just like everyone. Well, that's tapioca. I don't get disheartened about this chart. This chart is absolutely insane and is single-handedly propping up my net worth. Holy fuck. But RAM it's something that we've discussed, and we won't understand it for years to come because it's a bifurcated incentive system, a Forex market that has no precedence, but not entirely because it has this cyclicality. We understand why it goes down. It's not just depreciation, it's because of the increasing supply. But the increasing supply is a component of the bifurcated incentive system. So we won't know for a couple of years how this bifurcated incentive system works in the real world. It's like test and production. This is certainly test and production. Decaying emissions. So it's a disinflationary emission schedule, just like all of them, including Bitcoin. This is a disinflationary protocol. Bitcoin is not deflationary. So the only thing we have to draw on as precedence is curve and maybe aura balancer. And if you look at those charts, something similar. So maybe that plays through, plays out the same way. A range-bound asset, a high and a low, a high and a low, and it just goes back and forth between the highs and the lows. And maybe it goes back and forth between the highs and the lows and through the cycles of crypto cycles. Maybe it gets like range bound. So you got the high, low, and then the cycle. And then it goes, and then in 2032, it goes at a higher level. So you get these levels. It's just a very broad statement, speculative, forward-looking. I have the exposure to Ramses and Nile and Cleopatra and stuff like that and Velodrome and I would like to think that this is a reasonable, speculative way this could play out. Let's validate that. I'll check in 4 years. That's the hardest thing. So that's why I come back to like business rules and methodology with regard to me saying investment season is over. I bought my exposure. I have my exposure. My exposure is paid off. It's paid in full. It's a business that I bought that is now owned and I no longer owe any money. I paid it off and I've shown you guys how I manage collateral. Collateral takes on debt to buy an investment. Cash flow pays off the debt. So you go over to Aave, you borrow 25 grand, you buy a business, which is and that the model that we talked about, and then your cash flow pays off the debt. And right now I have nothing outstanding. I have no debt. And that's the way I want it because there's always the uncertainty of all things. I just want to be clean slate. And there's a great luxury that is the case when you don't have debt. It's a very luxurious position to be in. It's an unfortunate non-reality for a lot of folks in this country, the blue pill folks. Anyhow, Ramses. Man, that's crazy. Look at this shit. Oh my God. Uniswap just. Psh. It's interesting. And then you look at the chart and you're like, that's a painful chart. Cap gains, I bought a 20 chip at 1.8 cents. That 20 chip was worth 220. Producing income the whole way up, the whole way down, still producing the same thing. Still very content with if it produces $500 a week from now until 2055, that's cool. And then you'll have someone on social media say, sold at 200. I couldn't, it was locked. I get the business benefits because it's locked. Fits into my business rules. Business rules. But then someone who's obsessed with their net worth be like, taking the 200. And you made a mistake because you couldn't take the 200 because it was locked. So in the end, you have to play by your rules and you can't let yourself get emotionally affected by other people's opinions and other people's rules. So that's the most important takeaway I've learned. This is your game. It's a game against yourself. It's like poker. You are playing against yourself. What other people are doing is irrelevant. And you measure your success, and your success is relative to your past performance. You know, if you had 100K in 2019 and you got $1 million now, and your portfolio is worth $5 million at the top of 2021, December of 2021, you're sitting on a 10x. Most people in TradFi and equities markets don't 10x their portfolio. So that's kind of life changing because guess what happens when that happens again? 100 grand, 5 mil, 1 mil, 1 mil, 10 mil, 5 mil. Oh, the fucking horror. That sounds horrible. Oh, it took 8 years to turn 100 grand into 5 mil. The horror. So sure, some lucky fucker turned 100 grand into 50,000 bajillion dollars. But the horror of someone turning 100 grand to 5 mil, making 30% of the money, and you're making $1.5 million a year in income. Sounds horrible. So just some consideration for the insanity people will encounter in social media. It's kind of like peer pressure. Just don't let it. It shouldn't affect you. Play against yourself. No words. Easy mode is coming. Ryan, DeFi. Do you think utility asset appreciation will be driven by retail bidding or institutional? My 2 cents is Both retail and institutional have no idea what the hell's going on yet. The, as I've said, 171 people are listening to my story, and the majority don't understand that this is an emerging market. These are FX banks, these are credit offering banks, and these are derivative offering banks. These are banks. This is a bank. It's a banking operation, not the Zoom. It's a bank. It's a damn bank. This is a bank. This is a bank. You get credit. You can exchange foreign assets. A foreign asset is literally ST, ETH, and ETH. They're foreign assets compared to one another. It's a foreign asset. This is banking. Need anyone else to tell me it's banking? Is what it is. It's peering through the bullshit, which is something we talk about a lot. Hope that helps. Anyway, so second part of your question. Utility asset appreciation. Utility. Okay. First, utility is such a shallow terminology. These are businesses. These are banks. Businesses have products and services. The products and services are clear, facilitating exchange, transaction fees. Credit, interest rates. Curve gets interest from credit that it lends. And derivative products, which are basically a product. So that is what utility is. So expand the scope and don't just stick to rudimentary terminology. Hope that helps. The Khan, can you look into Demo recent Vitalik talk about it? About what? What's on DPIN? No, I appreciate that, Khan. I'm not going to look into it right now. It's big stuff. It's huge. But these guys are thinking 4, 8, 12, 16, 20 years into the future. We're talking about time horizon. We're talking about like disruption of the status quo. And DeepIn could be huge. And some DeepIn project could dethrone Amazon AWS or Microsoft Azure. Decentralized internet, decentralized file storage, decentralized compute, decentralized processing. Massive stuff. How much does it cost? How much is it paying? And how likely is it to continue paying into the future? Because fuck you, pay me. Hopefully these very simple phrases make decisions easier. Because that's the whole point. The whole point is to simplify. Because with simplification comes comfort. Allows you to relax and not be like, oh, what do I do? Do I buy or sell? Or how long do I hold it? Do I sell it? Try and find the top. Where's the top? Where's the top? Bitcoin's going to top at 250. Then you got to get out. You got to get out. And then everything's going to fucking crash. Oh, and then I have no idea where the bottom is. And should I buy the bottom? Everyone's going to be going crazy. It's going to be absolute pandemonium. There's going to be monkeys and rhinoceroses in the streets, civil unrest everywhere. Oh, the end of the dollar, the BRICS currency is going to go to the moon, and we're all going to be eating gold chips. What? Simplify. Simplify. Say it with me now. Hope that helps. Diego, do you believe in DeFi mass adoption? I love getting away from words. DeFi drives me nuts. Utility token drives me nuts. This is an emerging market. These are businesses. These are banks. This is global. This is cross-border conversation. This is the United States is probably going to do exactly what Bitcoiners have always talked about. They're going to latch on to crypto because this is an absolute critical piece of infrastructure, global infrastructure, that can get us out of a hole, a financial hole of this $34 trillion, $1 trillion every 3 months death spiral that we're in. The only way out of the death spiral is what Raul talks about, is out of productivity and growth. And the demographics are collapsing, so you're not going to get out of it with a manufacturing explosion. So what's the product that the United States offers that makes a fair amount of sense? uh, financial products and services. That could be interesting. If any, in any way, in any regard, that's exactly what Trump and Vance have uh, exuding. That this is probably next on the list. That these emerging markets are going to get monetized in a big way. So mass adoption has overtones of finality, like yesterday it wasn't adopted, and today it's mass adopted. When is this mass adopted threshold going to take place? It's occurring. Things are slow processes. And over the next 2 years, by the end of next year, I think things are going to look pretty weird. And then by 2029, things are going to look even weirder. Remember these words when you see some weird shit going on out there. My wife does that all the time. My wife comes home after being out in the streets because I don't go out often. I stay at home a lot. People drive. I tend to avoid going out. So she comes back like, God damn it, Noah. Since she tells me like one, two, or three stories that are like uh, her experiencing in the real world shit that I talk about, like prices or discounts or sales or clearance or people doing weird shit, insanity. She's like, God damn it, Noah, you're always right. It's gonna get weird out there. No worries. What legal docs did you have ChatGPT write? Would you be share? I already share my trust document on private Discord. Uh, Private Discord. I posted it last night. If anyone wanted, I had a full conversation with a bunch of Discord folks about trusts. I talk about it. It's an open topic. I understand it. I'm more than happy to help anyone if they have any questions. I have basically a full capacity to talk about the concept of a trust in the United States of America at this point. I don't have ChatGPT write anything. You can use it as a utility to write documents. It is not, you need to understand what you're writing. So therefore, what's a good statement? My document for my business is 2 years in the making. This took me basically 2 years to write. With and most recently, it's been helped significantly by AI, the likes of ChatGPT. But let me explain. Folks earlier were like, "What businesses?" Check this out. Section 16: Investment rules and nature of corpus assets. Um, Basically, I got to invest in this stuff. Investment outside of this criteria is generally allowed but broadly discouraged. So, overarching theme: the fiduciary, me, is instructed to treat investments as a non-refundable purchase of cash flow. Sounds like a lot of shit that we've talked about over the years. Locked. The corpus focuses specifically on specific cryptocurrency smart contracts that produce cash flow and have immutable lock functionality. These contracts ensure deterministic execution, preventing alteration or premature access, therefore, thereby certifying, it's a very critical legal term, the corpus's economic purpose and strict adherence to the economic substance doctrine. That's some fucking good shit right there. That after the years that I've been doing this, when I read that one little sentence, one clause in this document, I'm like, oh, that's good. You could not write that clause in a legal document prior to 2020. Couldn't do it. It wasn't possible. I mean, this whole section is something that'll resonate with everyone. We'll maybe go through a couple of them. Chosen assets must produce cash flow, ideally with an annualized return of 20% or greater, relative to an unrealizable fair market value. Unrealizable, another critical thing considering trust structures, because you can't sell VE curve. It's locked deterministically and immutably. Unrealizable is very distinct from realizable fair market value, though this is not required. So, which means basically this is giving me a little bit of discretion. I could broadly invest in, I have to invest in cash flow businesses, but I could obviously own Bitcoin and Ethereum as collateral instruments. Investments must exceed the risk-free rate of return. That seems like a good criteria because you're fucked if you just get less than the risk-free rate of return. These are very important clauses, immutability of smart contracts. I This is a big one. So this is related to like trust structure. I cannot sell these assets, meaning I can't sell them if I wanted to. And that's massive with regard to the economic substance doctrine, which is a terminology called unfettered control. I do not have unfettered control over the balance sheet. And that is provable, technologically provable. I can prove that I cannot access these assets. They are locked in the corpus. They are locked in the business. And that is massive. No matter what, it cannot be revoked. It cannot be changed. I cannot get a judge to say curve unlock assets. I cannot do that. That is massive. Transparency and verification, the blockchain, jurisdictional independence. This is could be contradictory to like regulators, or they like literally Genser's like, this is all a United States product, so we're going to regulate all of it. Meanwhile, I, in my private contract, state this has nothing to do with the United States. Um, Immutably deployed to varying blockchains. These contracts execute agreed upon terms automatically without third-party human dependence. And you guys have heard me say this phrase. They are not confined to a single nation-state's jurisdiction, but are globally accessible and operable. They are of no nation-state, yet accessible to all nations. You guys have heard me talk about all of this stuff before. And now I put it into writing. Volatility, interesting stuff about accounting. Which is real world significance. Because if it's locked, it has a $0 fair market value, and persistent insolvency is an interesting one. Because if my balance sheet is filled with $0 unrealizable fair market value assets, but it's producing cash flow relative to its relative fair market value, that's an interesting scenario that only exists post 2020. Because everything in the real world can be sold some way or another, but not in these crypto markets. UFIPA is local law. Anywho, one other section that may be interesting to you guys is novelty, tradition versus novelty. So a lot of laws are they talk in terms of very traditional instruments, equities, dividends, rents. So this is very, very clear rules. They talk about dividends, interests, and rents. And this is part of IRS code, basically, allocated to income. So traditionally, so ordinary dividends. So a dividend is a word that's completely associated with an equity. Just is what it is. So what is the receipt that we get from a weekly claim on a V curve, a Warden, vote market, what have you? It's not a dividend. It's a dividend because it's functionally comparable, but it's not a dividend as defined in law. It's not a dividend as defined in the rules of the brokerage houses, the stock market, so on and so forth. So it's not a traditional type of receipt. It is a novel type of receipt according to standards and according to tradition. Um, Rational trust does not invest in equities. Therefore, receipts are not dividends, as discussed in law in the context of equities. They are a novel, they are a novel type of receipt. They are a novel type of receipt. No, I got to think about this. Receipts are novel in this. Receipts. Well, you got to really think of semantics. Receipts are novel in a in a something like that. I may have to come back to this. Anyway, so that's a brief little expose. Unfettered access, sham touch doctrine, substance over form doctrine. These are all stuff that you could Google, or you could literally just go to like ChatGPT, and it's like, um, I mean, this it just helps with it. It does everything. Hello. It's like boom, 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 boom. You can do the research, you can do your own learning, and you can just do your own education. It changes everything because otherwise you got to do Google searches and you got to find a web page that somehow is indexed and it writes about it. Meanwhile, this literally tells you everything. It's the most extraordinary thing what this AI allows you to do. I mean, some of the stuff that I found is just wild. I talk about this in private though on Discord. It's overwhelming. And if you're interested, join our private Discord, and I will talk about this stuff until you say, Noah, stop talking about it. I can't do it right now. Come back tomorrow, because at this point it's kind of like second nature to me, and this is something I want to talk about because I who else? Everyone wants to talk about the things that are on their mind, and this is something that's very much on my mind that I think is very meaningful and could be meaningful to a lot of people. But you actually have to want to do it. Anyhow, hope that helps. That was a big digression. No words. Hi, Lucian. Good morning. I'm late to the party. Always a pleasure. Any idea when Tapioca goes live? Arrow seems like PA is good, but have a concern have been concerned jumping in products isn't live and is unproven. No idea. First answer. Second, yeah, all the reason in the world to be concerned. Um, that's the age-old situation that we all encounter. Something new, something's unproven. No lendiness. There's no lendiness. There's no trust. There's all belief, and the due diligence is the audits. And man, if anything, Matt and Ben are very consistent with their tap talks, and they're motivating, and it's exciting, and there's a lot of emotion in what they present. I mean, Matt's very interesting. This is extremely personal to him. And frankly, I think from a development perspective, as you guys see, I'm a software engineer, you get a little tear in my eye. It's a big thing. If this does what it's written on the can, so to speak, something for him to be very proud of. Like, I think relative to my parents, like building, what did they build? That's a big thing because this is big business. This is real business. And if what his product does, him and team, that's a big deal. Like it changes a lot. It is serious technology, financial technology, products and services in this emerging market of fintech products and services. It's a business. And man, that'd be something to be no words proud of. And he said, and that's the thing that kind of gets to me. Unlike a lot of protocols, that's what he shows. That's what he expresses, and we all know him because of his tap talks. This is personal, and that's interesting because there's no other protocol that has done anything like that. No other developer has been that personal with us, and that's interesting. I've been burned by people's product. Of course, we all have. That's literally 2020 and 2021. Where the hell is Multi-chain, man, that motherfucker, that was supposed to be gold. Back with my 2021 narrative or 2022 narrative list in December of 21, seamless cross-chain interrupt. And then Stargate came online and layer zero. Oh my goodness. Zero's back above $4. This shit is crazy. How's it back above $4? Who's buying? Who's buying? I mean, frankly, that's the thing. So some folks have been like, folks show me a lot in private messages on X. It's like I already have exposure to it. I already have exposure to zero. Zero is going to be collateral on tapioca. Great. Someone was talking about Barachain the other day. I'm like, great. Tapioca's on Barachain. Tapioca's everywhere. I already have exposure to everything. And that's why I say investment season is over. I already have exposure to everything I could possibly need. I own in some way, shape, or form, everything I own gives me exposure to the entire crypto space. And you don't necessarily need overposition. You don't necessarily need redundant exposure. Look, I have no ZRO. I sold my ZRO, but I have exposure to ZRO. ZRO does what it does. Tapioca is going to do what it does. And the list goes on and on. I mean, Curve is also cross-chain as well. Aura is cross-chain as well. All these products and services, they're everywhere. So be cognizant of that when you size your positions and when you even contemplate exposure. It's like, because you only have X amount of capital. You can't own everything. So do you even need exposure to something? I mean, look, Phantom. Look at AWA and Crosscurve. Look at the solidly position, the little microscopic solidly position I have. If Phantom does what it does, that's going to be all the exposure I need. Hope that helps. Lucian, I'm voting. It's voting day. It's Wednesday. Can you show us on Ramses how do you go about choosing what pools to vote for? What pools do you like balancing APR? Yeah, I keep it simple. I don't even think about it anymore. I don't have time for that shit. So what I do is I go over here. You can either go to incentivized and sort by reward. So you grab your incentives up front. Comp. That's interesting. A comp incentive. Okay. So $130 if that is the size of. You also got to be same with Curve. You got to be cognizant of how much voting power you have. So you want to dilute yourself. So $230. Bear in mind, I believe. Oh, those are emissions. So 98 cents on this. You just got to be cognizant and not overvote. So there's a lot of rentals. Alchemix still ticking. Survivor from 2020, 2021. That's cool. It's good to see. Clearly along there with Frax also getting into the mix with some rentals over here in Arbitrum. I think they'll be focusing on Frax though, but that's another conversation. But it's as simple as this. Get the most money you can. I mean, it's pretty simple. That makes sense, right? Just make sure this says a high number. And that is something I would not vote for. I have too much. I'm overvoted. I got 1.38 million RAM. So I got to do other stuff. Turn that off, go to all. See, I need more reward. I can't even do that. Let's go to 50. All right, 100. Give me 537. I got to go higher. I got to go into the thousands, like 2,000, 774. So that's how you do it. Just get the most you can. That's the equation. Hope that helps. Killis, Noah, it's 2050. Do you see a big change in banking system as far as the average person daily banking perspective? Yeah, 2050, if the world in 2050, you won't recognize society. It'll be more than like us remembering back to like the 70s. Everything will be different. Everything changes post 2030. The whole concept of productivity and energy and work and the social contract. This all changes by 2050. It has to, because it's in the process of fracturing and breaking. So by 2050, you will not recognize this planet. And very fortunately, I'll be alive in 2050. Most of us will, unless you're 75 years old listening to me, which is not demographic that listens to me is like 30s and 40s mostly. So, whole nother world, completely different world. Won't recognize it at all. And I'll have grandkids, and I'll be old, and it'll be weird. Will I still be doing the stream? Is the real question. Hope that helps. Troy, I wish they had a ChatGPT that explained DeFi businesses for dummies, newbies, and guys that help them through each step. Okay, do this. Go to ChatGPT. We're going to have a discussion about crypto. I want you to frame everything in terms of traditional financial business, specifically foreign exchange, credit, and derivatives. I'm going to provide you with crypto hash, uh, hashtags, tags, protocol names, and not hashtags, cash tags, and tickers, and you will respond if you have knowledge currently about them, or you will search the web as required to acquire the knowledge you need to process a response for our conversation. Tickers. Excellent. Here, boom, paste. I put it in the chat for you. Uh, where was that message? Troy. So Troy, I just put in the chat for you. Paste that into ChatGPT and have at it. ChatGPT is going to talk about crypto businesses until you tell it you have to go to sleep because you've been talking about crypto businesses all day. Hope that helps. Tapsy, late joiner, sup, yo, man, what's cooking? Adam, does your trust still owe capital gains tax on your collateral cash position being managed? And apart from that, only taxable events would be when distributed to beneficiaries. So let's break it down briefly. So distributions are not taxable to the trust. Distributions go on a K1, are part of DNI calculations, and ultimately are taxed to the beneficiaries. Now, if your kids are under 18, you're not giving your kids money. You're not distributing capital to your children. So you're pretty much not thinking about K1s or DNI until then. In any case, DNI is not taxable to the trust. So a big part of what you should look up is administration. Going over here, if you go to section 13, I know you follow the document. I'm sorry, not even section 13. Go to section 2 and look up IRC 67E. You don't even have to. I mean, I summarize it here with a quote. This is from IRC 67A. So this has to do with administration. So broadly, administrative expenses are deductible. So you're going to want to read 22.7, 2.8, 2.9. You're going to want to read section 2. Section 2 has to do with a lot of what you're thinking about. Taxation isn't what people think it is. Taxation is a very personal thing. So I own my business, and if I take a salary, I fill out a W-2. I file employment taxes. The trust has to pay employment taxes. I then, on my income, I file a 1040 and I got to pay income taxes, and that's how taxes are processed. There's a whole lot of rules related to what is taxable to the trust. All those rules are delineated in this document. And broad strokes, Adam, Section 2 is most interesting with regard to kids and beneficiaries and administrative expenses. And then Section 13 is the very low level. Like, this is very low level shit. This is like IRC code, statutory, semantic analysis. Um, where's a good conclusion? You could read 13 point. I mean, it's all meaningful, and that's the burden. The burden is this document started small. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger because it encapsulates every frickin' possible thing I could think of. It's all relevant. So this is a key thing. Equitable adjustments. Um, Section 20 is account rules. This is very important. Section 21 is you have to have strict limitations. You can't have unfettered access or unlimited authority. Unlimited power! You can't have unlimited power. So you have to limit yourself because that's ethical boundaries and you have to be reasonable. Strict prudent judgment, so on and so forth. You might get a kick out of 24. 23 has some bunch of example accounting calculations. And 24 is maybe what you're looking for. Accumulated income versus principal receipts when they're considered taxable income. 20 and 24 may be of most interest to you. Hope that helps. Let's do stuff like this in private where I can literally bring this up and we could literally break down paragraphs, break down clauses, and we could talk about this in much more depth. I got to save some of the secret sauce for private Discord. Can't let everyone know all the good stuff. And fortunately, my conversation isn't, $800 an hour like an attorney or $20,000 for one of these damn documents. It's just private Discord, and I'm doing it also for me because every time I get to reread my documentation to help folks understand it, I have an opportunity to make it better. And when I say better, I mean it from the Captain Rational's brain, the semantics, the meaning of words. Every word counts. Not this document will never be perfect, but it can always be better. Hope that helps. Is the beneficiary responsible to file and pay those taxes? Yes, but probably talking about kids, as I said. There's no D&I. That's the kicker. Administrative expenses in Section 2. If you're paying a kid's doctor's bill or you're buying a kid's food, read Section 2. Those are administrative expenses. And you're not distributing that capital to your kids. You are paying the product and service provider directly from the trust. So that's an administrative expense. Classical terminology is called HEMS expenses, HEMS. Hope that helps. Looks like my post was lengthy and it went across a couple of messages, but there you go. That's a good one, Troy. Have at it. John Steps, you should use Frock for crypto DeFi stuff. It's a GPT that monitors most crypto discords and telegrams in real time. Extremely knowledgeable. Yeah, I haven't really used X's AI. I've used them all. And I have a subscription to one that really annoys the fuck out of me because I want to cancel it. But I should use Frock. I should check it out. Yeah, definitely. It has access to basically X and all of that information, all those posts. So could probably give you some good conversation. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this was a big stream today. Wow, we're still going, 145. All right. I thank you all for joining me. 192 people made it to the end of the stream. Bigger and better, up only. Jump on Discord. It's not just a place about Crypto to the moon. We are the most rational community in the entire crypto space. We think in terms of business. I think in terms of the fact that I'm 41 freaking years old. I'm a parent. I have kids to raise, and I have to do things better. I have to be smarter. I have to follow the rules, and I understand the rules, and that's what we talk about. So it's a good place to find your footing, to be grounded, and do things not like the majority. That's the name of the game. Wednesday, July 17th, 1:46 p.m. I will see you guys later this week. I wish you all a good one. Catch you then. Peace.